Ethan Brooks had exactly $43 in his wallet and 17 minutes to get his daughters home before the babysitter's meter started running overtime. He didn't have time for detours. He didn't have time for complications. He barely had time to breathe most days. But then Sage screamed from the back seat. "Daddy, stop. Stop the car." Ethan's foot hit the brake instinctively, his heart hammering. What's wrong? 3 blonde heads pressed against the windows, 3 pairs of identical blue eyes wide with alarm. "They're the lady." Briar pointed frantically at the roadside. "She's not moving." Willow added, her small voice cracking. Ethan followed their pointing fingers. On the shoulder of the rural highway, a black limousine sat abandoned, its driver's door hanging open like a broken wing. And beside it, crumpled on the dirt ground near a wooden crate, was a woman in a red dress. Even from this distance, Ethan could see she wasn't sitting. She was collapsed, her long blonde hair spread across the ground, her elegant red dress stark against the brown dirt, one arm bent at an angle that made Ethan's old EMT training kick into high alert. She wasn't moving. At all. "Daddy, is she sleeping?" Sage whispered. Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. His mind raced through calculations. He had quit being a paramedic 3 years ago when Vanessa died. Quit because he couldn't save his own wife. So what business did he have saving strangers? Quit because 3 6-year-old daughters needed a father who came home every night, not one who carried death on his shoulders. He'd promised himself. No more emergencies. No more life or death decisions. Just a simple job, simple hours, simple life. But his daughters were already unbuckling their seatbelts. "Girls, stay in the car. I mean it." "But Daddy." "Stay. In. The car." Ethan pulled onto the shoulder, gravel crunching under his tires. He left the engine running. The girls' faces pressed against the windows as he approached the woman. The closer he got, the worse it looked. She was young. Late 20s, maybe early 30s. Beautiful in a way that seemed impossible for someone lying unconscious on a roadside. Her red dress was torn at the shoulder. Blood matted her blonde hair on one side. Her breathing, if she was breathing at all, was so shallow Ethan couldn't see her chest moving. His hands moved automatically, checking for a pulse. Training he thought he'd buried came flooding back. Pulse weak, thready. Breathing barely there. Possible head trauma. Possible internal injuries. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. "Daddy, is she okay?" Sage called from the car. "Call 911. Ethan shouted back. "Tell them we need an ambulance on Route 47, mile marker 12. Tell them unconscious female, possible head trauma." He heard the car door open. "Girls," I said, "stay." But they were already there. 3 6-year-old girls in their Sunday dresses, kneeling in the dirt beside a dying stranger. "We can help," Briar said firmly. "What do we do?" Ethan wanted to send them back, wanted to protect them from this. But he needed help, and they were all he had. "Sage, hold my phone. When 911 answers, you tell them exactly what I said. Briar, there's a blanket in the trunk. We need to keep her warm. Willow." He looked at his quietest daughter, saw her small hand already reaching for the woman's hand. "Willow, you stay right there and talk to her. Tell her she's going to be okay. Tell her help is coming." "But she can't hear me," Willow whispered. "She's asleep." "She can hear you," Ethan said, though he wasn't sure it was true. "Trust me, she can hear you." Ethan tilted the woman's head back slightly, checking her airway. Clear. He pressed 2 fingers to her wrist. Pulse still there, but getting weaker. How long had she been here? How many cars had driven past? The 911 operator came on the line. Sage's small voice was steady as she repeated Ethan's instructions, word for word. His daughter, 6 years old and already braver than most adults. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Ethan spoke firmly, but gently. "Help is coming. You're going to be okay." No response. Her eyelids didn't even flutter. Briar returned with the blanket, and Ethan draped it carefully over the woman, checking for injuries as he went. Definitely head trauma. Possibly a broken arm. He couldn't tell what else without moving her, and he didn't dare move her. "Daddy, there's blood," Briar said, her voice small. "I know, sweetheart. It's okay. Head wounds bleed a lot, but it doesn't always mean it's bad." He was lying. It looked bad. It looked really bad. Willow had both hands wrapped around the woman's hand now, leaning close to her face. "You're going to be okay, miss. My daddy used to be a paramedic. He's really good at helping people. And we're here. You're not alone." Ethan felt something crack in his chest. This was why he'd quit. Because you couldn't do this job and not feel it. Couldn't hold a stranger's life in your hands and not carry the weight of it forever. But watching his daughters, fearless, compassionate, so certain that helping was the only option, he remembered something else. He remembered why he'd started. "The ambulance is 8 minutes away," Sage reported, still holding the phone like it was the most important job in the world. 8 minutes. Ethan checked the woman's pulse again. Weaker. 8 minutes might be too long. "Talk to her," he told his daughters. "All of you. Don't let her be alone." And they did. 3 small voices filled the roadside quiet, telling the unconscious stranger about their day, about their school, about their cat named Pepper, who was probably wondering where they were. "We went to a birthday party today," Briar said. "There was chocolate cake. Do you like chocolate cake?" "I have a loose tooth," Sage added. "Want to see?" "Oh, you can't see right now. But when you wake up, I'll show you." "You're really pretty," Willow said softly. "Your dress is so pretty. Red is my favorite color." Ethan worked steadily, monitoring vitals, adjusting the blanket, watching for any sign of change. The woman's face was pale, too pale, but she was still breathing, still fighting. "Come on," he thought. "Stay with us. Stay with me. Don't make me explain to my daughters why trying isn't always enough." A small hand tugged his sleeve. "Willow." "Daddy?" She squeezed my hand. "Just a little bit. I think she knows we're here." Ethan checked the woman's eyes. Still closed. But as he watched, her eyelids flickered. Just the tiniest movement, but it was something. "That's good," he told Willow. "That's really good. Keep talking to her." In the distance, sirens. Thank God. Thank God. The ambulance pulled up 6 minutes later, and Ethan gave the paramedics a rapid assessment as they took over. Head trauma, unconscious approximately 15 minutes based on the condition of the blood. Pulse weakening. They worked with efficient precision. The same dance Ethan had performed hundreds of times. As they loaded the woman onto a stretcher, her eyes opened. Just for a second. Just long enough to look at Ethan and 3 small girls covered in roadside dust, and her lips moved. "Thank you." Then she was in the ambulance and gone. Sirens wailing into the afternoon. Ethan stood there with his daughters, all of them staring at the empty space where the woman had been. The crate, the blood in the dirt, the abandoned limousine with its open door. "Did we save her, Daddy?" Sage asked quietly. Ethan pulled all 3 girls close. "You did everything right. You were so brave. But did we save her?" He thought about lying. Thought about protecting them from the uncertainty of it. But they deserved the truth. "I don't know, Bug, but we gave her a chance. That's all we can ever do. Give people a chance." They drove home in silence, $43 still in Ethan's wallet, 17 minutes late, and the weight of a stranger's life settled somewhere between his ribs. He didn't know her name. Didn't know how she'd ended up unconscious beside a luxury car on a forgotten highway. Didn't know if she'd survived the night. All he knew was that 3 6-year-old girls had refused to look away when everyone else would have driven past. And maybe, just maybe, that had made all the difference. 2 days later, Ethan was making dinner when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Telemarketers had a way of calling right at dinner time, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Brooks?" "Yes. This is Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about the woman you helped on Route 47 2 days ago." Ethan's hand tightened on the phone. The girls looked up from their homework at the kitchen table, 3 pairs of eyes suddenly alert. "Is she?" "She's awake. Stable. And she's been asking for you. For you and your daughters. She said you saved her life." Ethan's knees went weak. He leaned against the counter. She's okay. Concussion, broken arm, some internal bruising. But yes, Mr. Brooks, she's going to be fine. And she'd very much like to thank you in person. After he hung up, 3 small bodies crashed into him at once. She's okay, Sage asked. The lady in the red dress. Briar added. She woke up. Willow finished. She woke up, Ethan confirmed, pulling them all close. She woke up and she's going to be fine. The next afternoon, Ethan stood outside room 304 at Memorial Hospital with 3 nervous daughters, clutching his hands. They'd stopped at a store on the way to buy flowers, Willow's idea, and now Sage held the bouquet like it was made of glass. What if she doesn't remember us? Briar whispered. She remembers, Ethan said. She asked for us specifically. He knocked. A voice called out, "Come in." The woman from the roadside sat propped up in the hospital bed, her left arm in a cast, a bandage wrapped around her head. But her eyes, those eyes that had been closed and unresponsive 2 days ago, were open and alert and filled with tears the moment she saw them. "You came," she said, her voice breaking. The girls hung back, suddenly shy. But the woman smiled, and it was like sunshine breaking through clouds. "Come here," she said softly. "Please, I need to see my angels up close." Willow was the first to move, walking slowly to the bedside. "We brought you flowers. Red ones, like your dress." The woman took the bouquet with her good hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. "They're perfect. Thank you." Sage and Briar joined their sister, all 3 girls arranging themselves around the bed like they'd done it 100 times. "I'm Claire," the woman said. "Claire Donovan, and I owe you my life." Ethan stepped forward. "You don't owe us anything. Anyone would have." "No," Claire interrupted firmly. "They wouldn't have. I'd been lying there for almost an hour. 11 cars drove past me. I counted. 11 people saw me and kept driving. An hour." Ethan's stomach turned. Jesus Christ. "But you stopped. You and these 3 brave girls." Claire looked at each of them in turn. "What are your names?" "I'm Sage. I'm Briar. I'm Willow." "Sage, Briar, and Willow," Claire repeated, like she was memorizing something sacred. "You held my hand. You talked to me. I could hear you, you know. Every word. When I was so scared and alone and everything hurt, I could hear 3 little girls telling me about birthday cake and loose teeth and how pretty my dress was." Willow's eyes went wide. "You could. Every single word. And it made me fight. Made me hold on when it would have been so easy to let go." Claire's voice broke again. "You saved my life, just as much as your father did." "What happened to you?" Sage asked with 6-year-old bluntness. "Why were you all alone on the road?" Claire was quiet for a moment, her good hand fidgeting with the blanket. "That's a complicated story, but the short version is that I was running away from someone, and I made some bad choices that put me in a very dangerous situation." "The limousine," Ethan said quietly. "It was still there when we left. Abandoned. It belonged to someone I thought I could trust. I was wrong." Claire met his eyes. "I don't want to burden you with the details, but I will say this. I was at the absolute lowest point of my life. I had lost everything. My job, my savings, my dignity. I was alone and desperate and convinced that no one cared whether I lived or died." "We cared," Willow said firmly. "You did. 3 little girls and their father cared about a stranger on a roadside, and that changes everything." Over the next hour, they talked. Claire learned that Ethan was a widower, that he'd quit being a paramedic to give his daughter stability, that he worked as a dispatcher now for half the pay but consistent hours. She learned about Vanessa, about how Ethan had spent 3 years terrified of losing anyone else he loved. Ethan learned that Claire had been a financial analyst at a major firm until 6 months ago when she discovered her boss was embezzling. She'd reported it. He destroyed her career in retaliation, blacklisted her in the industry, spread lies that made her unemployable. She'd lost her apartment, maxed out her credit cards, and ended up in a situation that had landed her unconscious on a highway. I was going to his estate to confront him, Claire admitted. Stupid, I know. Dangerous. But I was so angry and desperate. His driver picked me up, said his boss wanted to talk. But instead, she touched the bandage on her head. Instead, he pulled over, told me to get out, and when I refused, he pushed me. I hit my head on that crate, and then he just drove away. We should report this, Ethan said immediately. That's assault. Attempted murder even. With what proof? My word against a millionaire and his driver. Claire laughed bitterly. I've learned how that story ends. So he just gets away with it? For now, Claire's expression hardened. But I'm not dead, and I'm not giving up. I'll find a way to make this right. Legally. Properly. When I'm strong enough. The girls had grown quiet, sensing the weight of adult problems they couldn't quite understand. Can we come visit you again? Sage asked. Claire's face softened. I would love that. More than you know. They visited 3 more times that week. Each time, Claire seemed stronger, more like herself. She taught the girls card games. She braided Willow's hair while they talked about favorite books. She listened to Sage's elaborate stories about the adventures of their cat Pepper with the patience of someone who genuinely cared. And she and Ethan talked about loss and fear and the weight of starting over, about being parents. Claire had no children, but she understood the kind of love that made you brave, about the strange paths life took and how sometimes the worst moments led to unexpected connections. On her last day in the hospital, Claire asked to speak to Ethan alone. The girls were in the cafeteria with a nurse, getting ice cream. I need to tell you something, Claire said, and I need you to hear me out before you say no. Ethan raised an eyebrow. That's not a promising start. I've been offered a job. In Denver. A friend from grad school runs an investment firm there. She's been trying to recruit me for years, but I was too comfortable in my old life to move. Now that comfort is gone, and she's offering me a fresh start. Director of analysis. Good salary. Relocation package. Claire, that's amazing. You should. I'm turning it down. Ethan stared at her. What? Why? Because I just spent a week falling in love with this town. With 3 little girls who hold my hand and call me Miss Claire and make me feel like maybe I matter to someone. With a man who stopped when everyone else drove past. Her voice shook. I've been alone for so long, Ethan, and I don't want to be alone anymore. Claire, you can't turn down a job opportunity because... I already contacted my friend, told her I couldn't relocate. And you know what she said? She said they're opening a satellite office here. Would I be interested in running it? Ethan's breath caught. Here, in this town. Small staff, same salary. I'd still report to her, but I'd have autonomy. I could build something from the ground up. Claire leaned forward. I could stay. You barely know us. I know enough. I know that I was lying on a roadside ready to give up, and 3 little girls reminded me what kindness looks like. I know that you gave me a second chance at life, and I'd like to take it. What are you saying? I'm saying I'd like to stay in your life, in your daughter's lives, as a friend, as someone who understands what it's like to rebuild from nothing. She paused, and maybe, if you're open to it, as something more, eventually, when we're both ready. Ethan's throat tightened. Claire, I'm not asking for promises. I'm not asking you to love me, or even like me yet. I'm just asking for a chance. The same chance you gave me on that roadside. Ethan thought about Vanessa, about the promise he'd made to never let anyone close again, about protecting his daughters from loss. But he also thought about 3 girls who'd refused to drive past someone in need, who'd taught him that hiding from life wasn't the same as living it. Okay, he heard himself say. Okay, stay. Let's see what happens. Claire's smile was like sunrise. Yeah. 6 months later, Claire's satellite office was thriving. She'd hired 3 analysts, secured 5 major clients, and proven that sometimes starting over was the best revenge. But more importantly, she'd become part of the Brooks family in a way that felt natural and right. She attended the girls' school concerts. She taught them basic financial literacy, using Monopoly money. She was there for pizza nights and homework help and the thousand small moments that made up a life. And she and Ethan, slowly, carefully, with the caution of two people who'd both been broken, fell in love. It wasn't dramatic. There was no grand gesture. It was quiet moments on the porch after the girls went to bed. It was shared glances over dinner. It was the way Claire's hand fit in his. It was the way she made him laugh again after 3 years of just surviving. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Claire leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. "I never thanked you properly," she said quietly. "For what?" "For stopping. For seeing me when everyone else looked away." Ethan pulled her closer. "You thanked me about 100 times in the hospital." "No, I mean really thanked you. For giving me this." She gestured at the house, where 3 girls were inside playing a game. "For giving me a family when I thought I'd be alone forever. You gave us something too. You reminded us that it's okay to let people in, that not everyone leaves. Your daughters did that. They're the bravest people I've ever met. They learned it from you." Inside, someone shrieked with laughter. Sage probably, because she'd won at whatever game they were playing. "Do you ever think about that day?" Claire asked. "About how close it came to ending differently?" "Every day. 11 cars, you said. 11. But I was the 12th. You were the one who mattered." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "I almost didn't stop. I almost drove past like everyone else. I was broken, tired, and running late, and I convinced myself that I didn't have room in my life for anyone else's problems." "But you stopped." "Because 3 6-year-old girls were braver than their father. Because they looked at someone suffering and decided that was all the reason they needed to help." Claire turned to look at him. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you were supposed to find me. I think those girls were supposed to refuse to drive past. I think everything that happened, all the terrible things, all the pain, happened so that we could end up right here." "That's very poetic." "It's true. Sometimes the worst day of your life leads you to the best thing that ever happened to you." A year and a half after that roadside encounter, Ethan proposed. Not in a fancy restaurant, not with an elaborate plan. Just on a quiet Tuesday evening, after the girls were in bed, with Claire in her pajamas and no makeup, and looking more beautiful than anything he'd ever seen. "Marry me," he said. Claire looked up from her book. "What?" "Marry me. Not because I'm trying to replace what I lost. Not because I think you need rescuing. But because you're the best thing that's happened to this family since I can remember. Because the girls adore you. Because I love you. Because when I think about the future, you're in it. Always." Claire set down her book. Tears streamed down her face. "Yes. Yes. Yes, you idiot. Of course, yes." They told the girls the next morning. 3 identical faces looked up from their cereal bowls with expressions of such pure joy that Ethan had to look away to keep from crying. "Does this mean Miss Claire is going to be our mom?" Willow asked carefully. "If you want me to be," Claire said, her voice shaking. "I could never replace your first mom. She'll always be special and important and part of who you are. But I would be honored to be a second mom, a bonus mom, whatever you're comfortable calling me." "Can we just call you Claire?" Sage asked. "Of course. And you'll live here forever?" "Forever. And you won't leave." Claire knelt down, so she was eye level with 3 girls. "I'm not going anywhere. Ever. You saved my life on a roadside, and now I get to spend the rest of that life with you. That's the deal." 3 small bodies crashed into her at once, nearly knocking her over. The wedding was small. Claire's friend from Denver came, along with a handful of colleagues. Ethan's parents drove in from Florida. The girls wore matching dresses and took their roles as flower girls so seriously that Sage made a checklist to ensure every detail was perfect. But the best part came during the ceremony, when the officiant asked for the rings. Sage, Briar, and Willow stepped forward, each holding a small ring box. "We have something to say," Sage announced. The officiant smiled. "Go ahead." Briar took a deep breath. 2 years ago, We were driving home from a birthday party, and we saw Miss Claire on the road, and we made Daddy stop. Because you can't leave people alone when they're hurt, Willow added. And now Miss Claire is part of our family, Sage finished. So we want to give her this. They opened the boxes together. Inside was a simple silver bracelet, 3 charms dangling from it, a sage leaf, a briar rose, a willow branch. So you always remember, Briar said, that you're ours, and we're yours. Claire couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face as 3 girls fastened the bracelet around her wrist. When the ceremony ended and they were pronounced a family, everyone cheered, but Ethan and Claire just held each other, surrounded by 3 girls who'd refused to look away when it mattered most. The reception was held in the backyard of their home, strung with fairy lights and filled with people who'd become family not through blood, but through choice. Claire's friend from Denver gave a toast that made everyone cry. Ethan's father told embarrassing stories from Ethan's childhood that made everyone laugh, and the girls performed a dance routine they'd been practicing in secret for weeks. But the moment that broke everyone was when Willow stepped up to the microphone, her sisters flanking her on either side. "We want to tell a story," Willow said, her small voice amplified across the yard. "About the day we found Claire," Sage continued. "The day she became ours," Briar finished. They took turns telling the story from their perspective, how scared they'd been seeing someone lying so still on the roadside, how their daddy had looked when he first saw her, like he was seeing a ghost. Sage said, how they'd all worked together to keep her alive. "We didn't know her name yet," Willow said. "We didn't know she was going to be important. We just knew she needed help. And Daddy always taught us that when someone needs help, you don't ask questions first," Briar added. "You just help." "So we did," Sage said simply. "And now she's our Claire, and we're her girls, and that's the best thing that ever happened." When they finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the yard. Claire was openly sobbing, and Ethan had his arm around her, tears streaming down his own face. "Come here," Claire said, her voice breaking, and 3 girls rushed into her arms. That night, after the guests had gone home and the girls were finally asleep, Claire and Ethan stood in the kitchen washing dishes in comfortable silence. "Do you remember what you said to me in the hospital?" Claire asked, handing him a plate to dry. "I said a lot of things in the hospital. You said you couldn't promise me anything, that you weren't sure if you were ready to let anyone in." Claire turned to face him. "But you let me in anyway. You made it impossible not to. No, you made a choice. Every single day, you made a choice to try, even when it was scary, even when it brought up memories of Vanessa, even when the girls had nightmares and you had to comfort them while also making space for me." Ethan set down the dish towel. "You want to know the truth?" "Always. I was terrified. For months, I was terrified that I was making a mistake, that I was going to lose you the way I lost her, that the girls would get attached and you'd leave, and I'd have to explain to them why another person they loved was gone. But I didn't leave. No, you stayed. Through everything. Through Sage's appendicitis scare when I completely fell apart. Through Briar's phase where she tested every boundary to see if you were really staying. Through Willow's nightmares about losing her first mom and being scared that you'd disappear too. Those weren't reasons to leave. Those were reasons to stay harder." Ethan pulled her close. "I know that now, but it took me a long time to believe it. And now I can't imagine a single day without you." They stood there in the kitchen, swaying slightly to music only they could hear, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt completely at peace. The first year of marriage was an adjustment for everyone. Not bad, just different. Claire officially adopted the girls 6 months after the wedding. The paperwork was extensive, the home visits thorough, but the judge who finalized it had tears in her eyes as she signed the papers. "I've been doing this for 20 years, the judge said, and I've never seen a more clear-cut case of a family that was meant to be together." The girls each got a certificate with their names: Sage Brooks Donovan, Briar Brooks Donovan, Willow Brooks Donovan. They hung them on the wall next to their school photos, like they were diplomas. Now it's official. Sage announced at dinner that night. Claire is legally our mom. She was already our mom, Willow pointed out. The paper just makes the government know it too. Claire laughed through tears. Again, she seemed to cry happy tears at least once a week now. But it wasn't all smooth. There were hard days. Days when the girls missed Vanessa and Claire felt like she was intruding on sacred ground. Days when Ethan got scared and pulled away, and Claire had to decide whether to push or give him space. Days when everyone was tired and cranky and said things they didn't mean. But they always came back to each other, always talked it through, always chose to stay. One evening, about 8 months into the marriage, Claire found Sage sitting on the back porch alone, staring at the stars. "You okay, sweetheart?" Sage shrugged. "Just thinking. About my first mom. Wondering if she knows about you. If she's okay with it." Claire sat down beside her, careful not to crowd. "What do you think she'd say?" "I think," Sage's voice cracked, "I think she'd be happy. That we're not sad all the time anymore. That Daddy smiles again. That we have someone who braids our hair and helps with homework and makes really good pancakes." "Your first mom made good pancakes too, I bet." "She made the best pancakes, with chocolate chips and smiley faces." Sage looked at Claire with watery eyes. "I don't want to forget her." "You won't. I promise you won't. And I'll never ask you to." Claire took Sage's hand. "You know what I think? I think love doesn't run out. You can love your first mom forever and still have room to love me. It's not one or the other. It's both. Always both." "Do you really believe that?" "I really do. Because I love you and your sisters more than anything. And that doesn't take away from how much you loved your first mom. If anything, it proves that she raised you to be someone who knows how to love deeply. That's a gift to you." Sage was quiet for a long moment. Then she leaned her head on Claire's shoulder. "I'm glad Daddy stopped the car that day." "Me too, baby. Me too." The second year brought new challenges and new joys. Claire's business expanded to 3 satellite offices. Ethan returned to paramedic work, but only part-time, and only on days when Claire could be home with the girls. They established rhythms and routines. Tuesday night was always pizza night. Saturday mornings were for sleeping in and making elaborate breakfasts. Sunday afternoons were family game time, no exceptions. They also started new traditions. Every year on the anniversary of the Roadside rescue, they drive out to Route 47, mile marker 12, and have a picnic at the spot where everything had changed. The wooden crate was gone now, but they always brought their own. "Remember when you thought I was sleeping?" Claire asked the girls during the second anniversary picnic. "You look dead," Briar said bluntly. "Briar." Ethan and Sage said in unison. "What?" She did. "I thought we were too late." Claire laughed. "I probably did look dead, but I could hear you. Every word. Willow telling me about her loose tooth. Briar telling me about chocolate cake. Sage telling me I was going to be okay." "Were you scared?" Willow asked. "Terrified. Everything hurt and I couldn't move, and I thought maybe this was it. Maybe this was how I died. Alone on a roadside because I'd made stupid choices." Claire looked at each of them. "But then I heard you. 3 little voices telling me I wasn't alone, and it gave me something to fight for." "Us," Sage said softly. "You. Before I even knew your names. I was fighting to meet you properly." They sat there in the grass, eating sandwiches and watching cars drive past on the highway, and marveled at how much could change in 2 years. But the hardest moment came unexpectedly. On an ordinary Wednesday afternoon, Claire was picking the girls up from school when she saw him. Marcus Waverly, her former boss, the man who'd destroyed her career, who'd sent his driver to hurt her, who'd left her for dead on a roadside. He was standing by the school entrance, talking to the principal, wearing an expensive suit and his practiced smile, probably donating money to the school, buying goodwill and positive PR. Claire froze. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to drive away, to grab the girls and run, to hide. But she wasn't that person anymore. She wasn't powerless. She wasn't alone. She pulled into the parking lot and got out of the car. Marcus saw her immediately. For just a second, surprise flickered across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by that smooth, practiced charm. "Claire Donovan," he said pleasantly. "I heard you'd survived. What a relief." "No thanks to you. I'm sure I don't know what you mean." "Your driver. The one who pushed me out of a car and left me unconscious on a highway." Marcus's smile never wavered. "I heard about your accident. Terrible thing. But I'm afraid you're mistaken about my involvement. My driver quit months ago. No idea where he went." "How convenient. These things happen. People move on." He gestured at the school. "I see you've landed on your feet. Married to a paramedic, I hear. How quaint." Claire felt rage building in her chest. But before she could respond, 3 blonde girls appeared at her side. "Claire, we're ready to." Sage stopped, looking between Claire and Marcus. "Who's this?" Marcus's expression flickered again. Confusion this time. "Claire, my daughters," Claire said, putting her arms around the girls. "Sage, Briar, Willow, this is Marcus Waverly. He used to be my boss, before he tried to have me killed." "Claire," Marcus said, his voice low and warning. "What? You thought I wouldn't tell anyone? You thought I'd just disappear quietly? I thought you'd be smart enough to know when you were beaten." "I was beaten. You broke me. Destroyed my career, my reputation, my life." Claire's voice was steady, strong. "But you didn't kill me. And that was your mistake." Marcus's smile had gone cold. "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. I'm alive. I have a family. I have a successful business. And I have evidence. Evidence. Emails. Financial records. Everything you thought you'd deleted." Claire smiled. "I've been building a case for 2 years. Slowly. Carefully. And when I'm ready, when the case is airtight, I'm going to bring you down. You can't prove anything. I can prove fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. And your driver? The one who mysteriously quit? His family is in debt. Serious debt. The kind that makes people desperate. The kind that makes them willing to talk to prosecutors in exchange for immunity." For the first time, Marcus's composure cracked. "You're bluffing. Try me." They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Marcus straightened his tie and walked away without another word. Claire stood there, shaking, adrenaline crashing through her system. Then she felt 3 small hands slip into hers. "Are you okay?" Willow asked. "Yeah, baby. I'm okay." "Was that the bad man?" Briar asked. "The one who hurt you?" "Yes." "Are you going to put him in jail?" "I'm going to try." "Good," Sage said fiercely, "because he shouldn't get to hurt people and not get in trouble." That evening, Claire told Ethan everything. About seeing Marcus. About the confrontation. About the case she'd been building in secret for 2 years. "Why didn't you tell me?" Ethan asked, hurt flickering in his eyes. "Because I needed to do this on my own. I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't a victim anymore, that I could fight back." "You don't have to fight alone. That's what family means." "I know that now." Claire took his hands. "And I'm ready to let you help. I'm ready to finish this." 3 months later, Marcus Waverly was arrested. The evidence was overwhelming. Emails documenting fraud. Financial records showing embezzlement. Testimony from a driver who had indeed been in serious debt and was willing to talk in exchange for immunity. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Claire testified for 3 days. It was brutal, reliving everything, having her life picked apart by defense attorneys. But Ethan was there every day, sitting in the gallery with their daughters. And every time Claire felt herself breaking, she'd look at them and remember why she was doing this. Marcus was found guilty on 11 counts. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution. When the verdict was read, Claire didn't feel triumph. She felt relief. It was over. He couldn't hurt anyone else. And she'd done it. She'd fought back and won. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. But Ethan and the girls formed a protective circle around Claire, guiding her to the car. How do you feel? Sage asked once they were safely inside. Claire thought about it. Free. For the first time in 3 years, I feel free. That night, after the girls were asleep, Claire and Ethan sat on the porch, watching the stars. I'm proud of you, Ethan said quietly. Thank you for being there. Every single day. Always. He pulled her close. You know what I realized during the trial? What? That day on the roadside. I thought I was saving you. But you saved me too. How? You reminded me that it's okay to be brave. That running from pain doesn't make it go away. That sometimes you have to face the hard things head on. He kissed her forehead. You made me want to live again, not just survive. We saved each other, Claire said softly. Yeah, we did. 2.5 years after the trial, life had found its rhythm. Marcus was in prison. Claire's business was thriving. Ethan had been promoted to head paramedic at the hospital, and the girls were 11 now, growing into remarkable young women. But the best part was the ordinary moments. The Tuesday pizza nights, the Saturday morning pancakes, the Sunday game tournaments that got increasingly competitive as the girls got older. One evening, Claire was helping Willow with the school project about heroes. Who are you writing about? Claire asked. You and Daddy. Claire's throat tightened. We're not heroes, sweetie. Yes, you are. You stopped when everyone else kept driving. You didn't give up when bad things happened. You chose to be brave even when you were scared. Willow looked up from her paper. That's what heroes do. What about you three? You were pretty heroic that day, too. We were 6. We didn't know any better. Claire laughed. You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew someone needed help, and you refused to look away. Because Daddy taught us that. And now you're teaching other people, by being kind and brave and refusing to give up on people. Willow was quiet for a moment. Claire, yeah, I'm really glad Daddy stopped the car that day. Me too, baby. Me too. 3 years after the roadside encounter, life had settled into something beautiful and ordinary. 3 years after the roadside encounter, life had settled into something beautiful and ordinary. Claire's business was thriving. Ethan had returned to part-time work as a paramedic, finding that he could hold death and joy in equal measure when he had people to come home to. The girls were 9 now, still identical but developing their own personalities. Sage wanted to be a doctor. Briar wanted to be a teacher. Willow wanted to rescue animals. And one evening, as they all sat around the dinner table arguing about whose turn it was to clear dishes, Claire caught Ethan's eye across the chaos. Thank you, she mouthed. For what? He mouthed back. For stopping. Ethan smiled. Then he looked at his daughters, their daughters, and felt a rush of gratitude so overwhelming it took his breath away. Because 3 little girls had refused to drive past someone in pain. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop when everyone else keeps going. Because broken people can heal each other if they're brave enough to try. And because the worst day of Claire's life had led her to the best thing that ever happened to her. A man who stopped, 3 girls who held her hand, and a family that chose her when she'd been certain no one ever would again. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please don't let it end here. Let it remind you that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness, stopping for a stranger, holding someone's hand, refusing to look away, can change everything. Subscribe and be part of our Heart Echo Stories family, where every story lifts the spirit and reminds us that compassion still matters, that broken people can heal together, and that the bravest thing you can do is choose to help when everyone else keeps driving. And if this moment moved you, share it, because sometimes sharing hope is the kindest thing we can do.